You want to understand the concept of editing? Stick around, let's figure it out. Hello and welcome to this channel. On this channel, we take the big Hollywood ideas and we transpose them into smaller ideas so that you, the African filmmaker or the indie filmmaker across any part of the world, can implement in your works. Today, we are talking about editing. I wish I had this advice when I was starting off as a newbie or as an upcoming editor. It's very important that before you even start editing, before you get to an editing software, it's very good that you get an orientation, you get to know what editing is all about, and probably the core principle on which editing softwares are all built upon or are all lingered upon in terms of non-linear workflow. Just a little bit of background, in those days we used to have Avid Media Composer, which was kind of like the industry standard. Right now, Avid is still the industry kind of standard in Hollywood, but that is obviously changing. We have softwares like Adobe Premiere Pro, DaVinci Resolve, HitFilm, and other very capable softwares that have also come along and have revolutionized the indie filmmaking world. And almost everyone who puts his or her mind to it can certainly become an editor. Now, this video is by no means trying to make you a world-class editor or transforming you into a world-class editor overnight. What I'm here to do is just to give you a guide on how to go about editing, just in case this is the first time you are opening an editing software or you just open the editing software and you see a certain interface. Now, what I'm going to show you is kind of universal in terms of non-linear editing softwares. It's kind of a core principle on which all editing softwares are built upon or lingers on. Now, what is this core principle? This core principle, in every video editing software, you would certainly find a timeline. You will certainly find a point where you can import your videos. You will certainly have a preview window where when you play the videos, you can see it happening. And of course, you will definitely have a playhead. And some basic things are quite very universal. And so the goal of this video is not to particularly limit you to any editing software, but just to explain to you generally the whole concept of editing in a very physical way so that you can get to understand. And now, I don't know if anyone has done this before, but this is something that I have kind of developed personally, and I want to share it with you. So if you're ready, let's go to the table and I will explain to you how the concept of editing works. Basically, as you can see here, I've done a very rough drawing, an estimation of what probably you would see in an editing software. So now, with softwares like Adobe Premiere Pro, if you open it, probably this is what you see after you have a sequence or when you just open the software. So, but what you should know is that in every editing software, we have a timeline, and I've represented that by just this line. And like I said, we have a preview window. I've drawn this at this particular angle because I'm a Premiere Pro user, and that is why I've kept it at this angle. But this preview window could be anywhere depending on which other editing software you are thinking of using or which other editing software you are working from. And so the core principle is that, and this is where you explore all your videos. When you import your videos into the software, importation means simply bringing the videos into the editing software to be able to do your edits or to be able to do touches to them. So now, for instance, when we import videos here, this is where they are going to be. And I'm going to represent the videos by just this. I've made some cutouts, and these are going to be just like thumbnails. So obviously, you will definitely have a toolbar. You will definitely have a toolbar and a place where you can find file and to import. Now, I have a very detailed tutorial on this channel showing you how to do this in Adobe Premiere Pro, because there are several ways by which you can import or bring in a file onto an editing software. So now, basically, depending on which editing software you're using, like I said, the goal is just to give you the basics of this so that you can get going with any editing software that you pick once you understand this whole concept. So now, these are our videos. So let's say we've told the software to import. So it imports, and this is our first video. So what happens is that when the software imports the video, you have a short thumbnail. that shows the action of the video. Now, in latest versions of Premiere Pro, when you even hover your mouse around this, you can even see the video scrubbing through, like the video is just playing a quick playthrough so that you know which clip you are dealing with. Now, let's import another video. We've imported another video, all right? And this is a thumbnail of it, so we know that, okay, that's this particular video. Let's import another video, all right? We've imported another video. That's the thumbnail of it. Let's import another video. This is another video. All right, let's import another one. Import. Let's import another one. Import. After we finish importing this, there are several ways you can go about beginning your cut. Now, in some editing softwares, we have an edit window here, and we certainly have the preview window. So now, what you can do is to click on this, double click on this file, or you can open this file, and the video will begin to play over here. And now, what you can do is you can make in points and out points. What are in points? Now, let's say you start the video and the director says, in 3, 2, 1, action. So just after the action, and probably when the person breathes in before the person begins to talk, we can set an in point here. Then the person talks to this level just before cut, we set an out point. So this is in point, this is out point. All right. So after trimming it that way, then we now select it and we put it onto the sequence. And once it's on the sequence, it means you are now beginning the real editing process. That is by able to trim and cut and join and all that. This is the main place where the main action takes place. The other alternative is, instead of sending it to the editing window before you make your in point and out points and bring it here, you could also just drag this straight and put it on the sequence and start making your cuts on the sequence. You don't really have to send it to the editing window before you bring it to the sequence. Now, for example, if we lift this straight forward and we throw it in here, then it will become ready for editing. Now, once it's in here, this is how it will now look. All right. Can I turn it this way for much visibility, or just like this? So remember, is this video we've lifted in here. So let me take that out. So that's this video we've kept on the timeline. So what happens is that at this point, the timeline divides the video into various frames. So if you zoom in very closely into the timeline, you can see all the individual frames in the video. Now, I have a separate video on this channel explaining what frame rates are and how you can get to know which frame rate is better for which particular type of situation. Depending on whichever situation you are, which type of frame rate is good for you. Just a quick heads up, frames are basically the still images that come together to make a video. Now, under normal circumstance or the Hollywood standard is 24 frames. So the camera takes 24 images and they are put together to form 1 second of a video. So if you take 24 pictures in succession of an action and you play it continuously together, you are going to have a video motion of that particular action. So now, once you zoom into the timeline, you would see that it has divided all this into various sections and you can count every single frame on it. The other alternative is if you don't zoom in and you just, and as you see, we just lifted it and we brought it onto, and we just lifted it, brought it onto the timeline. We are just going to have it as a whole straight piece, which is here. All right. So once we have it here, we are now ready to start doing our cuts. Now, let's begin cutting, trimming, and joining. For the purpose of this illustration, I've also come along with a scissors just to demonstrate the cutting. Most editing softwares display icons that are synonymous to what they actually claim to be doing. And so most of the editing softwares you would actually come across, the cut feature or the cut tool in most of the editing softwares you are going to come across, it's a scissors sign, because scissors is actually used for cutting. And A little bit of history on this is that those days when film started, or film began, or let me say editing began in film, when they started editing this or putting all of these things together, they physically used to cut the film and join it together to form a complete piece. And so this particular history has lingered on even up to today's generation, where nonlinear editing software still use scissors as a symbol of the cut sign. And so now, for example, we've kept our video on our timeline. Let's say there's an error, probably within this area of the video. So we have a playhead, all right? So this is our preview window. So now whatever that is on this timeline, we will now be seeing it here. So let's assume that this picture here is a video that is playing from this side, all right? So it plays to where these ladies are. So let's assume this particular frame is what is on the screen right now. And from here, we want to transition onto another scene, or we want to cut it from here. So we don't need all this part of the video. So what we do is, depending on the editing software you're using, so you go in for scissors tool or the cut tool, which like I said, is mostly represented by the sign of an actual scissors. So let's say this is our frame and we want to cut from there. So we bring in the cut tool and we make the cut. Voila. So that is how we make the cut. So once we've made the cut, there's going to be a visible cut here. Once we've made the cut, there's going to be a visible cut down here. Good. But remember that we said this part of the video, we don't really need it. And that is why we created the cut. That is why we placed a cut there. So what do? Now we delete that part of the video that we don't want. So let's go ahead and delete that part. So I'm going to take this out. So you hit delete, or depending on which software you're using, let's delete this, and voila. So you now realize that this place is blank. So when this video plays, this is the last frame that we are going to see. This ladies, gorgeous ladies, we get to their frame. So once you get to their frame and the playhead gets here, it means nothing is going to be displayed here. It's going to be black, or it's just going to be pitch black. Nothing is going to appear, because at this point, there is nothing at this part of the timeline, all right? So what do? Now, probably once our frame ended on these ladies, we come back here and we find another video, all right? Let's take another video. Probably this video is another scene somewhere that you now want to join to this lady, so that from that scene, it moves to another scene, all right? So we've come here, we've gone through, we've seen all the thumbnails, all right? And we've realized that this is the right video. This is the right video we actually want to show. So we actually drag it, sorry. So we actually drag it and boom, we drop it here. Once we drop it here, it actually becomes one piece, all right? Once we have our playhead here and we click on play from here, and it begins to play up to this side. Once it ends this video, it's going to continue playing to the next video, meaning you've done a cut and join. Now, in some editing softwares, this is not going to be automatic. Once you put a video here and it's not in ripple edit mode, it's going to create a space here. So now this, just an empty space. So what do you think will happen? So when the video plays, all right, so we start here, we click on play, it goes through, then it gets here. Once it gets here, it's going to go into pitch black because there's nothing here. So the playhead continues, then it gets here, then the video starts again. Or let me say, that's just the next scene. So the next scene begins again from this point, and it continues to play till the end, all right? So in this kind of instances, we have something we call ripple delete or ripple edit. And what you can do is, in softwares, in other editing softwares, you can just simply click on this space and say ripple delete, and it will pull this back to join, all right? You can also just manually put your mouse on this or whatever that you're, or if you're editing from a keyboard, all you do is just select this and you drag it back and make sure you cover, make sure there is no small space in between. All right, you drag it till it covers it completely. Now what happens if we play? So now when we play our video, we have a smooth play. It gets here, it changes onto the next scene, it continues to go, and it plays to the end. And so basically, that is how the whole concept of editing works. Now, in some other cases, we also have instances where you can have overlays. Now, overlays are like if you have cutaways that you actually want to put on this video. For example, like just what we are doing right now, I'm talking to this camera, and this could actually be the camera I'm using from the top could actually be a very good example of a place where I cut to just to hide certain things here. What happens is that although you have the first layer here, we still have our timeline where we put all these videos on. So this, you could actually, this could be point A, or let's say video 1. And this video 1 contains, so let's say what we cut earlier on was an interview and there was a mistake here. So we made a continuation and we added this part on. Now, professionally, if you play it through and it gets to this point, something is going to happen. It's going to jump from this side all of a sudden at once to the next video that you're seeing. And when it happens, we call it a jump cut, since it's just on the same location. And if you don't zoom in enough or you don't change an angle that is that shows an astronomical change in the angle, then we say a jump cut has happened, because physically you can see the camera all of a sudden changing position without any explanations or showing any smooth transitioning. So this, what professional editors do with this is that they now use another video. Like for instance, when he was talking, he kind of made some few mistakes along the line, but you don't notice them because we have other videos on top. That is all the things that he does, all the narrations that is going on, the physical things that we show, the physical actions that we show going on. Those things end up covering up the mistakes that happen in the interview. So for example, let's say this other video, it's a B-roll. We call them B-rolls. That is the other actions or the other videos you put in to make the whole thing, or to spice the whole thing up, or to make it a very interesting piece. So let's say, for instance, as he's saying, my name is Askanda, I wake up in the morning, I take my bath, I brush my teeth before I go to school. Let's say this video is actually showing him waking up. At this point, he says, I wake up in the morning, I brush my teeth. So just before I brush my teeth, let's bring in this video, put it on top. All right, so once we drop it in, all right, so we have this one on top. So what has simply happened is that we've actually overlaid an action over this jump cut, so that once the playhead gets here, we are not going to see that there is a jump cut. We are still going to see Askanda talking in the background, and the video keeps playing through the whole timeline. So for example, we start from here, it begins playing. So once it gets here, at this point, because this is the video at the top layer, all right, so once it gets here, it changes and begins to show this on the screen. At this point, it doesn't show this anymore. We have a different image altogether over there. So it continues to play through. So once it gets here, we see that it leaves here and goes back to the interview. All right. So we see the interview happening, and the playhead continues to play till the end of the video. So that is how we achieve jumping from one place to the other once the action it's kind of going on. Like I said, usually most of the editing softwares, the number of layers you can create are limitless. I mean, you can put, after having this, we can have another one, we can have another one, another one, another one. We can have plenty other overlays that you can put. So that means you can put many videos on top of the original one, and they'll all play normal depending on the strength of your computer or the specs of your computer. So after you are done with this, You now go through the stage of adding your transitions. And now mostly transitions are those things that you put, or the kind of effects that you put between each clips that shows how you are changing from one scene to the other. Now over here, we can see, for example, at this our joint where we put these two together, the joining point. So at the joining point here, we can now put our transition here. For example, if it's a fade, all right? So we are simply saying that when the video plays and gets here, it should gradually fade into the next video and play along as it goes. We can also put a slide effect. So when it gets here, before this video would start appearing, it should just kind of like just sweep into the shot. It could come from the right, it could also come from the left, it could come from the bottom, it could also come from up. So it sweeps into the shot. So those are transitions. We use them to be able to change from one point to the other. So like I said, this is also another very universal thing that works across all nonlinear editing softwares. If you get it, depending on which one that you use, transitions are always put just in between two clips to be able to join them together. As you become advanced in this whole thing, we also have natural transitions that you don't need to put what you have on the computer between the videos. You can just be creative. You see, you can let someone walk in front of your camera. You can, there are a lot of possibilities. It opens up a whole new world of possibilities when it has to do with transitions. Yes, so basically that is, I hope this is very helpful if you have plans of becoming an editor or you just want to begin to edit. I hope this video was very helpful to you. If it was very helpful, please kindly hit this subscribe button and hit the like button so that a lot of people on YouTube can see this particular video. The name is OBL Junior. You can follow me on Instagram. This episode was kindly supported by Pave Ghana. Until next time, my friends, keep practicing filmmaking. Peace out.